Men, men. I am so frustrated by men and their treatment of women. I am not a suffragette. What do I know of politics and the law? Men take care of all of that. What a duty it was to be born a woman in 1839 as I was. We were told that women were put on earth to serve men. The Bible told us that. Even my father said that we were to walk with our heads down behind the man. I entered this life of a woman in Quechee, Vermont, one of the many children of Franklin and Mary Wright. My father was a builder and a carpenter. He was skilled and educated and made quite a bit of money. I adored him. He was responsible for the building of the Fort William Henry Hotel up in Caldwell on Lake George. He was the contractor and builder. He was a smart man, and he did a wonderful job. I was really, really impressed with him, but I was very, very impressed with his plans. My mother raised the family and raised the children and took care of the house. He was successful, and that was the way. He provided for us. I was much more interested in what my father did than my mother. I would ply him with questions, pore over his plans, and beg to go to the work site. Oh, it was a huge project, 9 stories tall, with porticos overlooking Lake George. My father told me that he would humor my interest, but I must learn from my mother, for I would live her life, raising a family. By the time I was 23, my father decided that I would become an old maid. So he started looking for a family and a widower so that I would have a husband. Well, he found a widower up in Hadley, Gordon Conkling. Gordon's family settled Conklingville and Hadley in 1848. He was rich, but on the downside, he had 2 children, William 4 and John 6. They were sweet boys, but I made it clear, if there was a marriage, we would have no more children. Gordon was smart. He had many patents for his iron ore mining equipment. But the most successful patent was for a machine called a magnetic separator that would pull iron ore right out of the dirt. We grew rich on that machine. I was never consulted about where we were to live, city or house. I was to bring the boys, and like we did with my father, hire an Irish girl who would look after the household to my satisfaction. Gordon's business and mining adventures took us all over the country. We lived in Salt Lake City, Cleveland, New York, and Brooklyn. We traveled the country for 18 years, returning to Glens Falls in 1880. Now the boys were raised, and John couldn't decide where he wanted to live. He loved the New York City area, so he decided to settle in Newark. He did come up often with his family, however, and live with Gordon, William, and me at our home at 106 Warren Street, right across from the McKees. Oh, it was a great neighborhood. We lived there for many years. I felt free of my dutiful life now that the boys were raised and on their own. I decided that now that I had a staff for the house, I would live a life of my own. I would take advantage of my current situation. I joined women's clubs and church discussion groups. I was looking for a best friend. When I was a younger woman, I enjoyed the company of older, educated, well-read women, ministers' wives, and educators. I realized that now I was over 40, well-read and rich, that I was one of these women. I made friends with many wonderful younger women. Some very special relationships developed. In 1890, I met formally with a young woman named Sarah Parsons. Her mother had passed away, and now 30, she was eager for female conversation. Her father had taken their home on Warren Street and converted the second level into an apartment. There was a family living there. He had joined the spiritualist movement and was conducting seances in the home. She would walk down the street for conversation, study, and discussion. She felt that now she was past 30, her chances for marriage were pretty well over. Oh, we were good company for each other. One day, we were riding on the Glen Street Hill. The carriage smashed. The horse spooked and ran off with dragging the carriage behind it with the driver running after them. Well, we were unharmed. But there we sat on Glen Street in our petticoats, laughing. Oh, we never forgot that. We'd adopted, Gurdon and I, informally, a young woman named Arabel Seeley. She was a budding artist and lived with us for many years until Gurdon's death in 1897, then with me after that. She was young and alive, and she kept me young and current for 16 years. The large house on Warren Street was becoming too large for two spinster ladies, so I decided that I, a woman, would give a legacy to other women. I made a will stating that my home property would become the site for a home for aged women. My historical home, once the home of Abraham Wing and William McDonald, would be given as a home for aged women in my name. It was appraised for $10,000. I took half in cash and gave the rest to the Glens Falls Home for aged women. I was the first great contributor to that worthy cause. When I died in May 13th, 1901, I was described as a good Christian woman, an Episcopalian, a charitable woman, and possessing many friends. My estate, even with my donation, exceeded $30,000. Gurdon never would have thought of it, and John and William certainly questioned my sanity. But I left this life with a legacy for the women of Glens Falls.